We're still in chapter 14 of Isaiah, and we're going to be verses 19, 20, and 21 right now. 19, 20, and 21. But you are cast out of your grave like an abominable branch. We're talking about Satan again. Like the garment of those who are slain, thrust through with a sword, who go down to the stones of the pit, like a corpse trodden underfoot. You will not be joined with them in burial, because you have destroyed your land and slain your people. The brood of evildoers shall never be named. Prepare slaughter for his children because of the iniquity of their fathers, lest they rise up and possess the land and fill the face of the world with cities. This is about Satan, and this is about his demise, and this is about his punishment. This is about his followers. He's cast out, and abominable, and talking about the evil that he's done. And, they they're going to go away. It talks about like the guy run through the sword like a corpse that's just being walked over, and that's one thing about it. When they were in war and when they were fighting and when the enemy went down, they just trod over the top of them, just walked over them, It wasn't no respect and no going around them or anything like that. So this is what it's talking about, and the followers, their children and the followers of them. It's not going to be good for any of these people when this judgment continues to come and go on with Satan here. So that's what he's talking about here. And we got verses 22 and 23. Can't read. For I will rise up against them, says the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name of remnant, and offspring and posterity, says the Lord. I will also make it a possession for the porcupine and marshes of muddy water. I will sweep it with the broom of destruction, says the Lord of hosts. So again, he's continuing on with this punishment. Now more here, he's talking about Babylon. He switches from Satan gets over to Babylon again. And Babylon is just, man, it's cursed, and it's going to be bad. Rise up against them. So he says, I'm not going to stand with them, not going to stand for them. I'm going to cut off from Babylon the name and the remnant. Well, the people of Babylon and any remnant of those people is not going to make it. They're not going to be doing good. The offspring and the prosperity, anything that grows out of Babylon is going to be cut off. Also making a possession for the porcupine. Well, who wants to belong to a porcupine? That's just going to be a rough life all over the place. And they'll be put in not a good place. He said he's going to put them in a marsh. He's going to stick them down in a mud hole somewhere in a pit. Is what's going to happen to them. And then he says, I'm going to sweep it with the broom of destruction. Well, that means there ain't going to be a whole lot left of it. It's going to be busted up and tore up. Some of the stuff that he talks about with the destruction like that, especially not talking about Babylon, it's just going to be rubble, So there's not good things coming for it, okay? Verse 24 and 25. The Lord of hosts has sworn, saying, surely as I have thought, so it shall come to pass, and as I have purposed, so it shall stand. That I will break the Assyrian in my land, and on my mountains tread him underfoot. Then his yoke shall be removed from them, and his burden removed from their shoulders. Well, he's continuing on with the destruction and the things that he's going to plan on doing with Babylon. But then here he's talking about Assyria, and Assyria being destroyed. Now Assyria was been against Israel like forever, and so he's not got a good thing in mind for them. So he says, surely as I have thought, it's going to come to pass, So this is something that's going to go down the pike for sure. And he says, I have purposed it, so it shall be, so it shall stand. So in other words, this is an uncompromising deal for God, that this deal with Assyria is going to come on. It's really going to happen. You know, he said he's going to break the Assyrians in his hand, and on my mountains, you know, tread him underfoot. So he's going to push them down. They're going to be put down lower. He said his yoke shall be removed from them and his burden removed from their shoulders. So in other words, the yoke's going to be removed and the burden's going to be removed because there's going to be nothing left of it when he gets done with it. The Syrians are going to pay the price, and they're going to lose a whole lot for what they've been doing to Israel all of this time, okay? Verse 26 and 27. This is the purpose that is purposed, again, the whole earth. And this is the hand that is stretched out over all the nations. For the Lord of hosts has proposed, and who will annul it? His hand is stretched out, and who will turn it back? In other words, God said, I said it, it's going to happen. You know, nobody's going to thwart it. It's not going to be minimalized. It's going to happen just the way that I said it. And that's just pretty much, he's again saying, it's just going to be what I said it's going to be, and it's not going to be good, you know, for them at all. Verse 28 says, this is the burden which came in the year that King Ahaz died. Okay, evil King Ahaz dies. He was a bad king. And let's go ahead and do verse 29 too. Do not rejoice, all of you Philistia, because the rod that struck you is broken, for out of the serpent's roots will come forth a viper, and its offspring will be a fiery flying serpent. So what he's telling them is, you people don't get really, really too excited because y'all got more bad kings coming. I think they end up having about one or two good kings, and then they get kings the next, two or three of them that were worse than Ahaz was. And so he's telling them, you know, don't get too excited because there's still some hard times, you know, that are coming on, and y'all need to be ready for it. That's what he says here, you know, so out of the serpent's roots will come a viper, and out of the offspring of the viper is going to be a fiery flying serpent. So, you know, things are going to be rough. Things aren't going to really get better here for a while yet. So y'all just got to hang on, okay? In verse 30, 31, and 32. The firstborn of the poor will feed. The firstborn of the poor will feed, and the needy will lie down in safety. I will kill your roots with famine, and I will slay your remnant. Wail, O gate, cry, O city, all of you Philistia are dissolved, for smoke will come forth from the north, and no one will be alone in his appointed times. What will they answer, the messengers of the nation? That the Lord has founded Zion, and the poor of his people shall take refuge in it. Okay. This prophecy is going to be against the Philistines, you know, warning them not to rejoice at the death of the king of Assyria too much, or because there's probably another one coming along that's going to be just as bad. You know, it states that a more devastating force will come from the north. It says that's where it's talking about the smoke, that this force is going to come in from the north, and it's just going to blow in like smoke and overtake them, okay, is what he's telling them. It's going to cause famine and death to some of the Philistines, and while God's people, particularly the poor, will find refuge and safety in Zion, which is God's home, you know, particularly the passage kind of tells us as it is that there's a declaration that God found in Zion as a secure refuge, you know, for his people. It's a warning to the Philistines, you know. It's a direct warning to Philistia, telling them not to rejoice because of their oppressor they feel like is gone. Just tell them it's not a time to be throwing parties over this deal. Isaiah prophesies that a new and more powerful enemy is coming from the north, which will bring a lot of destruction through famine and warfare to the Philistines. God's provision for the poor, like always, God's looking out for the little guy. In contrast to the destruction of the Philistines, this passage promises that the poor and the needy people among God's people will find safety and provision. And it talks about Zion. It concludes that, you know, that the fortress or the refuge for these people, you know, who should trust in it rather than all the alliances with all these nations and with Philistia, because, you know, when things get bad like this, these people are always trying to be deal makers with somebody. You know, they're going to make a deal with this one, make a deal with that one, and form an alliance with this one, form an alliance with that one. You know, and he's telling them, no, it's time for that kind of stuff is over. And what they need to realize is overall, it reinforces God's power over all the nations, you know, even amidst all these political changes and his commitment to protecting his people. You know, it's about that they've all mistreated Israel so bad and that he's not going to stand for it, which, man, I think that's a message that the world ought to hear today. You know, there's some people out there that are just Israel haters, you know. And the only reason they hate Israel is because God's for it. And somebody's going to pay a price somewhere. Because I know God didn't do all this to all these people when they were against Israel. And he's going to let the rest of the world slide on that deal. So y'all might want to pray for Israel every now and then just to keep yourself on good graces. You know what I'm saying? So that kind of finishes us up with 14. So I just want to read y'all a little precursor to chapter 15 as we get ready to go into 15, because it's going to switch, and now he's going to proclaim some stuff against Moab. So it's a prophecy detailing the destruction of Moabites. And Moab was a neighboring nation to Israel, but due to their pride and their mistreatment of Israel, they are not on the good side of God. You know, it's vividly described as a widespread mourning, as we'll see in 15 about it. So that means there ain't a lot of good stuff going on there. There's going to be devastation of major cities in Moab. Like there's a city called Ar, just A-R, and there's another city, Kir, K-I-R. And the people are going to pray, but as far as they've got into this, the prayers are pretty much futile, you know. So it's not like God's even really going to listen to these people anymore, because they've already shown themselves for who they are. You know, that's like, I think they're going to be praying to God just to try to not change anything, but just try to appeal or to appease God. That's like us. You can pray to God all you want to, but unless you're real and got that personal relationship with God, you're just bumping your gums. That's like praying before you're saved. And there's some people that they really don't like to hear this, but here's the deal. God does not hear your prayer if you're unsaved. The first prayer God hears from a person is, "Dear God, save me." That opens up the communication chain, okay? And so these people are just praying for nothing. It talks about in 15, it talks about destruction. I mean, like overnight destruction, where once there were fertile fields and fertile vineyards, and they just wither up, and the harvest, it just stops. You know, things just dry up. It speaks of extreme grief all over Moab. You know, it's going to talk to us about weeping and the shaving of people's heads and the shaving of their beards and, you know, wearing the sackcloth and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's going to be a widespread thing. You know, it'll be streets and rooftops and squares, and even their military people are going to join in on this lament, on this sadness and stuff. It's going to affect everything about them. And they're going to wail and pray in their high places. They're going to go to their high places in their temples. And, They're going to rely on their own strength, and they're going to rely on these old gods that they have made up, and they're not going to be relying on the God of Israel. So this Moab, it's just going to be 9 verses. We'll probably knock it out next week, but it ain't going to be good for these people, And this is the thing. Man, I'm going to tell you something. I got to thinking about Isaiah today and some of this stuff that he said. And if you look forward at some of the things that he still got to tell people, I don't think I'd want to be a prophet like that. These guys got to stand up in front of all of these people and declare to them that they're going to die, their children are going to die, their towns are going to be wiped off of the earth, they're going to lose everything that they got, they're going to be overtaken, they're going to be imprisoned, Hey, that is not a good job to have right there. I'm going to tell you something. So God must have raised some of these prophets up very, very special and super strong men, because it ain't like he's out on the street corner heralding good news, He ain't no extra, read all about it kind of guy. So it's a pretty tough time to be in God's service here, I think. So anyway, that's kind of what we got for tonight. We'll do chapter 15 next week. You guys online, thanks for joining in. If we can help you, y'all give us a holler. Y'all come visit with us on Wednesday night, 6 o'clock, eat supper, have church with us, have Bible study and prayer. Come see us on Sunday mornings at 10:30. We'd love to have y'all come and be a part of our service and our family on Sunday.